Good evening. My name is Annette Mills, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Corvallis, it's my pleasure to welcome you here this evening. Thank you for making the time to join us for tonight's program, which is being co-sponsored by the Corvallis-Benton County Public Library. And I also want to recognize a couple people who are helping with tonight's program. Autumn Adams of our program committee, raise your hand, Autumn, and our president, Elizabeth Anderson. So our purpose tonight is to provide you with information about how our local community is being impacted by decisions made this year by the federal government related to food and agriculture, and to discuss how we might respond both individually and together. We'll start with an overview of the League and our positions on local food and agriculture. After that, we'll do a little bit of networking, followed by short presentations by each of our panelists. And then it's going to be our audience's turn to ask questions. We'll present a call to action, then provide some time for a small group discussion, and finally, we'll have a few announcements. So we're going to pack a lot into the next hour and a half. So when most people hear the name League of Women Voters, they think of voter registration and candidates forums. And for more than 100 years, the League has been the premier grassroots organization for voter education. But that is certainly not all that we do. The League is a nonpartisan grassroots political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. Although we still have the word women in our name, we welcome everyone to join us, regardless of gender expression. We never endorse or oppose political parties or candidates, but we do empower voters and defend democracy through education and advocacy, using our standing positions to influence public policy. Any person 16 years or older is eligible to join the League, and we'd love to have you join us. Simply go to our website, lwvcorvallis.org, and click on the Join tab at the top of the homepage. And this is where you can also donate to the League to support our work. If you'd like to receive our monthly newsletter, just scroll down to the bottom of our homepage to fill out and submit the form you see here. Now, at the national, state, and local levels, we have more than 100 standing positions. And we use our positions to influence public policy through advocacy to our elected officials. Our positions vary widely, from climate change to housing, from waste management to voting rights, from agriculture to childcare, and many more topics. The League is also known for our work on empowering community members to become informed and engaged. Now, last April, the leadership of the League of Women Voters of the U.S. declared that our country is in a constitutional crisis, from the flagrant disregard for congressional authority and governmental checks and balances to defying Supreme Court orders. Locally, our League has been sponsoring a series of programs with the theme, Restoring Democracy, as a means of engaging and activating our community. Tonight's focus on food and agriculture is our fourth program in the series. In 2010, the LWV of Corvallis adopted a comprehensive standing position on local food that includes 9 key points. And the first 2 are shown here. All community members should have access to safe, local, nutritious, affordable, and culturally appropriate food, and we support convenient access to grocery stores, food service businesses, food banks, and soup kitchens within communities. The National League has a position on federal agricultural policies that was originally adopted in 1988 following a 2-year study and consensus meetings with leagues all over the country. That position was restudied and revised in 2014, and I can remember when a number of us here in the Corvallis League worked on studying that national position and giving our input on what we thought needed to be changed. All of the League's complete positions at the local, state, and national levels can be found through our website. Now, the current administration has made a number of decisions related to food and agriculture that have serious implications for individuals, households, communities, and farms across our country. Many of these decisions have to do with loss of funding and cancellation of programs, while others have extreme consequences for the people who produce our food. We'll be hearing tonight about the local impacts of these decisions during our program. Now, before we get started in the meat of our program, the League of Women Voters is committed to not only educating our community about the issues that matter, but also building community. So we want to encourage some communication right here, right now, as part of this program. So we're going to take just a few minutes to talk with each other. So in a minute, feel free to get up and move around or stay right where you are. Turn to those on your right, on your left, behind you, in front of you, whatever. But we challenge you to please meet someone and talk to someone that you've never met before, at least one person. All right, go for it. Just a few minutes. All right. As you're listening to our three speakers, please jot down any questions you may have. And if you don't already have a question card but would like one, please raise your hand if you think you might have a question. Okay, you'll have an opportunity later if you think of some things that, and we'll have both oral and written questions. So after we've heard from each of our speakers, we'll bring them up to the front table to respond to your questions. And at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Ryan McCambridge, who is the Executive Director of Linn Benton Food Share. Oh, don't get up yet. I have the intro to your bio to read here. Ryan is a graduate of Oregon State University, and he's been working with Linn Benton Food Share since 1997. He began his career at Linn Benton Food Share as the part-time warehouse worker, loading pallets and driving the forklift. Opportunities presented themselves over the years, culminating with his appointment to the director role in 2014. Ryan has also served as the chair, vice chair, and member of numerous committees with the Oregon Food Bank Network. In addition, he has been a Benton County Commissioner at the Linn Benton Housing Authority for 8 years. Please welcome Ryan to the podium.
Just go up a little bit. All right. All right. Good. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm excited to share a little bit of information about Linn Benton Food Share. Part of that is also the history of food banking itself. As Annette mentioned, I've been at Linn Benton Food Share since 1997 as a youngster back then. I've seen quite a bit of ebb and flow through the food system lens. And one takeaway has been that a lot of the debate around food, emergency food, it's a lot of the same topics keep coming back over and over again, and we're kind of in that cycle yet again. Food banking is unique to the American experience. Food banking started in 1964 in Phoenix, Arizona as a food recovery, grocery recovery program. And since then, it has expanded to basically an institution throughout the country. Linn Benton Food Share started in 1981, along with a whole host of other programs like ours as a response to the recession of the early 80s, and also the fact that the U.S. government was paying farmers to produce product but not distribute that product as price supports. So what was happening is the USDA was purchasing butter, cheese, and storing that in limestone caves in Kansas City, Missouri, while people were going hungry on the streets in the early 80s. People got wind of this. There was a whole movement to then say, well, if we're paying for it, let's distribute that product out to folks. And slowly that product did start to move out, but there was no infrastructure by which to distribute that to folks in need. So what would happen is semi trucks full of butter and cheese often would show up at parking lots. Local agencies or local churches would have volunteers there and start handing out these 5-pound blocks of cheese. It wasn't the most efficient or sophisticated system, but over time it did get more sophisticated because of those early efforts. There was also one aside to this. When the emergency food system finally started receiving federal funding, it was called TFAP. So originally it was called the Temporary Emergency Food Assistance Program. Bob Dole, if people remember Bob Dole from Kansas, was adamant that it was called the Temporary Emergency Food Assistance System. Fast forward to the mid-90s, and Bob Dole was no longer in the Senate. They changed the name from temporary to the Emergency Food Assistance System. It's just a little aside that I'll share with you. So, ironically, and this is related, so that in 1996, when welfare reform happened, which changed AFDC, Aid to Families with Dependent Children, and was replaced by TANF, temporary aid to needy families. It's just that it's almost one-to-one when temporary was replaced on either end from TANF to TFAP. Just a little tidbit, share with your friends. Over the years, again, food banking has gotten much more sophisticated. In those early days, from 1980, we were dependent basically on USDA commodities and a small stream of donated food throughout the system. And that was pretty much 90% was USDA commodities and that a small amount of donations. Into the late 90s, those commodities started to falter, and new sources of food started to emerge. Ironically, those new sources were what used to be food recovery from grocery stores. So what happened in the early 60s or the mid 60s when food banking started, we sort of rediscovered in food banking the grocery store recovery program. That continues to be the case now. We call it the Fresh Alliance program. It's now quite mature, and so just locally, Fresh Alliance will bring in about 100 to 150,000 pounds of food to the two-county region every single month. And that is just from the major grocery store chains. We also have expanded our ability to purchase food. This has been crucial in meeting the demands of the emergency food system and the folks who come in. Early on in my career, we hardly purchased food at any time because we didn't have the resources to do it. But as public support for our program has increased, it's allowed us to really focus in on both providing more choice at the emergency food banks, as well as increase the nutritional quality of product that's available for folks. And related to the recent changes to food stamps, how that impacts our local agencies, and I'll also mention, so Linn Benton Food Share is the central hub of food banks, meal sites, and supplemental agencies. We have 68 agencies that we provide food and assistance to throughout the two counties. Those agencies go as far south as Monroe, up to Jefferson and Sweet Home, Blodgett, all points between. We deliver product once a week to all those locations so that the volunteers that are manning those food pantries and meal sites can stay there and focus in on the the tasks at hand. So during the recent SNAP crisis, so late October, early November, when the government shutdown was in earnest, I'll also mention, so I have been at Food Share since 1997. There have been ups and downs in federal funding throughout that time. There was a government shutdown in 2018, I think 2017, 2018. This last round, it was the first time in my known history that food stamps were actually delayed. It was one of the most disruptive periods that I've ever experienced at the food bank. Now, we had some inkling going in to the latter part of 2025 that this was going to happen, or at least a government shutdown was going to happen. So because of the resources that we have gathered, we were able to get ready for it, I guess you could say. Nothing quite prepared us for what actually happened, though. So just in the last week of October through the first 2 weeks of November, emergency food assistance distribution increased 29% over the same period last year. And that was that 29% was actually concentrated in about a 10-day window where numerous food pantries across our region were saying their lines were, well, one shared that this was what they imagined the Great Depression era lines would have looked like. And thanks to an incredible effort of our volunteer force, we were able to meet the need. Just to give you an idea, for November alone, our emergency food pantries, and there's 18 of those in our two-county region, distributed 5,422 food boxes just in that 1 month, and most of that was the first 10 days of November. Those food boxes served about over 16,000 individuals during that period. We have that same amount of increase looks to be on order for December and January as well. So we're seeing a higher need. Part of it is changes to SNAP policy, and also just the experience that a lot of folks felt where their government and the benefits that they were receiving had let them down. And we've heard that quite a bit from the number of folks that have come through our doors, is that now the food bank is more reliable than their SNAP benefits. There's so much more I need to tell you, but probably the biggest takeaway, though, for us as we look into 2026 is the implications of the One Big Beautiful Bill and the state budget. So SNAP, and you may have read where for the 25-27 biennium, they're predicting that the state will need at least $115 million out of the general fund just to keep SNAP where it is currently because of how the cost sharing structure is. They're also, depending on how the state funds that and implements some error rate changes, the next biennium could be even larger, of about $450 million that the state would have to come up with to, again, maintain SNAP levels where it is. Any of those cuts, that $115 million is going to impact other programs that the state has to fund, and where anything that falls short is going to fall back on the charitable network, meaning Linn Benton Food Share. So yeah, I look forward to your questions, and I know I have to cut it there. So yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. And hopefully you'll have a chance to share some of those things that you didn't have an opportunity to share during our Q&A period. Our next speaker is Mika Contreras, the Executive Director of Linn Benton Lincoln Health Equity Alliance, which she leads regional, community-driven efforts to advance health equity through policy and systems change, including food security and justice initiatives. Since stepping into this role, Mika has guided the Alliance through significant growth, including its expansion to 3 counties and its transition into an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization. Under her leadership, the organization is strengthening regional collaboration and building the capacity of community-based organizations led by and serving historically marginalized communities. Mika brings extensive experience in healthcare systems, community organizing, and policy advocacy. She has supported community-led initiatives that address the root causes of inequity, including access to nutritious, culturally relevant food. Her work includes developing policy recommendations, engaging with local and state decision makers, and facilitating trainings that center racial justice and community power. Please give Mika a warm welcome.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. I do want to add one little thing about my intro that's very important and it guides all my work. I'm also the daughter of an immigrant from Dominican Republic, and I am the granddaughter of immigrants from Haiti and Dominican Republic. So that is also a lens in which I bring to all of my work. So the Alliance we are a grassroots coalition led by people of color, and we work for long-term policy and systems change. Food justice and security is just really one small component of our work. We have a very long list of community identified priorities, which I won't get into right now because I have a lot to say and I'm going to try to squeeze it in. But so our community identified priorities, the last time we did our research, we do community needs assessments as part of our work with our priority populations, which are communities of color, folks with disabilities, folks that are low income, LGBTQIA folks, farm workers, and tribal communities, and refugees and immigrants. And when we did that, food security and justice came up. And the way that we define food security and justice is that communities should have the right to define their own food systems and access nutritious, healthy, culturally appropriate food produced through sustainable and life-affirming methods. So this means it's non-extractive, right? It's relationship-based. It takes into account not only human relationships, but the relationships of the whole planet and ecology. So that's how we define it. And unfortunately, the groups that we represent in our priority populations are already disproportionately affected by food insecurity. Obviously, this is driven by structural racism and all kinds of things that I could get into for a much longer talk, but we won't get into that now. But unfortunately, the recent changes that are happening are definitely placing greater strain and burden on our priority communities. So I'm going to talk real quick about eligibility changes, funding cuts and cost shifts, immigration and ICE action, and data and privacy concerns, because all of those are really major federal changes that are affecting food security and access in our region. So I'll start with the SNAP eligibility changes. There's a large percentage of folks in our 3-county region that rely on SNAP. And there's 1 in 6 in the state that rely on SNAP. It's an extremely important program, and we have 18 to 30% of households that are relying on SNAP. And unfortunately, the eligibility cuts that have come down based off of HR 1, basically, folks who used to qualify are now no longer going to qualify, and it's estimated at 3,000 people in all of Oregon. And these are refugees, asylees, trafficking survivors, and other non-citizens without green cards. This has already started, unfortunately. And additionally, there are expanded work requirements. Folks are now supposed to be working 80 hours a month. And there's going to be fewer exemptions for that. Additionally, there's ongoing compliance, so that means people are going to have to document their work, their job search, training hours. All of this increased administrative burden is going to make it harder for people to qualify, and people are going to fall off the rolls even if they're eligible. We also know that SNAP Ed has been eliminated, which is the program that supports nutrition, education. It's an extremely important program, and the whole program is at risk now. And, we as the state are going to be holding a lot of that burden, the financial burden of being able to hold all of these increased administrative requirements. And then now I want to talk about immigration and ICE actions, because You might be wondering, why am I talking about immigration and ICE action? We're talking about food justice and security.
More slowly, immigration what?
Immigration and ICE actions. Yeah, you can lift that up. I'm trying to pack a lot in there, so sure. So why am I talking about immigration and ICE at something where we're talking about food security, right? Well, first, I'm sure everyone here is aware that our food systems are built off of farm workers and seasonal farm workers that are, of mixed status that are being targeted. But additionally, immigration enforcement is a food security issue because it's all of these things that we have been seeing, all of the unlawful action, all of the targeting is increasing fear throughout the entire community. The fear that is occurring is, forcing people to make really difficult decisions. People are not leaving to go to the grocery store. People are avoiding culturally specific food drop-offs or where you can pick up culturally specific food because they're scared of being targeted or being picked up. And it really is a huge issue. And so it also increases social isolation, which is just increases health equity issues. So additionally, I want to talk about data and privacy concerns. And I know that folks are maybe wondering also, why am I talking about data and privacy? Well, we know that DHS has targeted SNAP, and they have tried to get folks' information who receive SNAP so that they can target them for ICE enforcement. Additionally, we know that folks who have received OHP also, they have been targeted. They're trying to get information based off of their immigration status and their addresses so they can enforce immigration. And unfortunately, a judge just ruled in their favor, so they are going to be getting that information. So people are scared, and people who would normally give their information don't want to give their information. So people are going to go hungry. Protecting privacy helps people eat, and it's necessary. And so, why does this matter locally? Because we're going to have more hunger. There's especially immigrant households, and those in rural areas are already seeing rising food insecurity. As it was alluded to earlier, the need is increasing. Visits to food pantries have increased 30 to 60%, including some of the projects we fund, which are school-centered and culturally specific free food pantries and pop-up food pantries. And we know that working families are hit the hardest. And all the increased fear just deepens all the health inequities. And it's a ripple effect. It affects all of us. It doesn't just affect them. It's not them and us. It's all of us together, or it's nothing. And we know that food banks can't fill the void. I mean, it's never going to replace SNAP's reach. And so I just want to say, what we believe in. We believe that food security is a human right, and everyone needs consistent access to food to stay healthy and care for their families. We believe food justice is health equity. When access to food is unstable or conditional, preventable health inequities increase. Ensuring food access benefits all of us, and reliable food access strengthens public health, stability, and community, and well-being across our whole region. So what can we do? I know I just said all these horrible things that are happening, but I'm not here to talk and just bring everyone down. There's so many things that we can still do, and the fact that there's so many people in this room together, even curious about what we can do, is really powerful. So first, I think, we can advocate and organize. First, you have to examine your own capacity, do your own safety checks, figure out all of that. Once you've done that, we can advocate and organize, right? We can share stories, we can stand up for food programs, we can write to our legislators, we can organize and build power locally, build relationships. We can take know your rights and know their rights trainings so that we can show up for people and we can create a more safe environment. And we can stand up when we see lawlessness. And stand up for justice and just shift the narrative, because food security and access is not charity. It is a human right, and it is absolutely necessary. We need to move the conversation from charity to justice. Everybody deserves to eat. And finally, I just want to give a real short session preview, a really short preview of some of the things that are coming up in the short session that are super important. So there's the anti-hunger package. And that's being led by Food for All Oregonians, and that would ensure that every Oregon student can access free breakfast and lunch. It would also protect SNAP, and it would restore the SNAP benefits for immigrants and refugees who have lost their protections, and it would also invest in the Oregon Food Assistance Networks. There's also data and privacy things coming out, and there's also Fight for Our Future, which is a series of policies that would be rejecting the tax giveaways for the wealthiest 1%, disconnect us from the tax code. There's also a lot of things coming up about accountability and transparency, including proposals to limit masked law enforcement and sensitive location protections. So that would keep immigration enforcements away from schools, courthouses, and hospitals so people can just exist, right? And we can be safe. And I don't have a lot of time, but if anyone wants to learn more about any of these, please feel free to talk to me afterwards. Unfortunately, the bills have not dropped on all us yet, so I don't have specific numbers, but I can connect you and help you with whatever question you have to my own capacity. And then finally, we can always donate, right? Flexible funds are always important. At least in our coalition, almost every partner that I know that we fund has lost funding. We have lost funding. Food banks need money. So, donating to culturally specific food pantries is super important. You can volunteer your time, your skills. Sharing food locally is always important. And to me, always, I think what's the most important is to support efforts that reduce, the stigma and the paperwork and all the things that make people feel less than just because they need to eat. And finally, just to kind of end on a more positive note, I think what we need to do in general is move from the scarcity mindset to one of abundance, right? Like, I think a lot of the reasons why, and the things that we're facing have to do with people being scared and people feeling like they're never going to have enough. It's based off the extractive economy. It's not relationship-based. And I think about my grandparents, right, who are more, you measure your wealth by how much you can give, right? That is our measure of wealth. And when we can start to shift the narrative and shift the way we think and change our extractive economy to one that is of a gift economy and something that's more based in relationships and collaboration, that is how we're going to make changes for the long run. So thank you very much. I have a lot more to say, but I had to speed through this one, so thanks for your patience.
Thank you so much, Mika. Really appreciate that. And Laura, our next speaker, our final speaker, an apology clearly when I sent the PowerPoint slides to the library to put on their system, something went haywire there, but we'll correct that through talking. Our final speaker is Laura Bennett, who is a local farmer and educator here in Corvallis. Laura has worked on small organic farms in our area for the last 15 years, managing everything from harvest to sales to human resources, and continues to work with many of the producers in our area to help sell a wide variety of local products. Working closely with Indigenous farm worker families in Corvallis, her graduate work also shed light on shared experiences of farm workers in our local food system here in the Willamette Valley. Currently, Laura's main role is helping to manage Ejido Ono, a new community produce farm in South Corvallis that specializes in adapting Oaxacan and Guatemalan crops to our climate. Together with the Linn County Health Department, she's been working to develop a thriving food for health program that works to address food insecurity. Please welcome Laura to the podium.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me today. And yeah, I'm also just echoing what Mika was saying, that it's really exciting to see everybody here. And that's a big part of what we're trying to do, community building. So there's so many ways in which agriculture is being impacted right now. And I'm really, again, I think what's really being impacted in this moment are the people who work in agriculture. I'm going to talk pretty briefly about policies and different funding changes that have been happening that are obviously incredibly impactful as well. But ultimately, I think that the people who are working in agriculture in our county and in the state are really at the heart of agriculture and at the heart of what's happening in the country right now. So this was a photo from the pandemic, just to show that people who are working on farms don't stop for anything. And I always like to kind of juxtapose these gorgeous images of beautiful vegetables that we see when we're going through the farmer's market. And I think that, you know, even as farmer's market shoppers, we kind of forget that connection of who is actually in our local food system, and who we share that space with. So as far as challenges facing farm businesses, there's been so many different cuts. As far as like greenhouse funding goes, there's a lot of different programs within NRCS. On our farm specifically, we're located down on 99. You know, for example, our representative from NRCS, who was supposed to provide us with opportunities on how to get greenhouse funding, you know, took this federal bait that during Doge's defunding spree that went around, where people could, you know, get a severance package and leave their position. So there's been a lot of that where there's just not funding available there. A lot of the partners that we work with of these incredible new, you know, funding programs through Oregon Food Bank, different ways that we've seen in the last few years of beautiful new ways to distribute food with people. A lot of those funding and opportunities and grants are now gone. So that is huge. SNAP is a big one. We definitely see a drop in customers who are able to pay with SNAP. For example, at the farm stand, you may be familiar at the farmer's market, there's Double Up Food Bucks that increases food access for people. The same thing works at local farm stands now, which has kind of been a new implementation. Farmers Market Fund, who runs a lot of that, they were very quick with their solutions, much like Linn Benton Food Share was. And they were able to dole out specialized funds. However, all of us, farmers markets, farm stands, received a letter from the federal government basically saying, you may be found guilty of SNAP fraud, essentially, for providing assistance during that time, which obviously everyone ignored and gave people what they need. So, and then there's also just like some nitty gritty around a lot of the new programming that's coming out for farms. And some of that is around like, here's all of these new programs, but they don't impact a specialty crop designation, which is specialty veg production, nurseries, grass seed. Those are pretty big industries in our area. So there's just a lot of like chaos and upheaval within our funding structures, within FSA and NRCS that do a lot of funding of the actual on the ground farm business work that is really deeply impacted. But again, I really just want to talk about the people. Lack of labor in Benton County is one of the biggest threats facing agriculture in our area. And that is because of ice. Every single year when you see a big pulse, you know, obviously we have this major production in the middle of the summer season, and then a lot of people who have been working on farms, they will, you know, be short work in the winter, and there's always people looking, you know, do you have work? Do you have work? People being let go in the winter. This is the first winter that we've heard of where the Christmas tree farms, nurseries, didn't find the extra 10 people that they needed, didn't find the extra 5 people that they needed. That's really massive to our industry, but it's ultimately like, I hate to even say that it's a hit to the industry because the hit to the families is so much harder. But it is completely unrealistic to think that agriculture can go on without people. And, you know, that is industry wide. It does not matter if it's a small scale organic vegetable farm or if it is a larger scale conventional system. It doesn't matter if it's grass seed or hand-picked bunches of carrots at the farmer's market. It's an industry-wide thing that's being impacted. And even though we're not seeing in this current moment ICE raids here in Corvallis yet, we're seeing it up in cities where contract crews would come down to fill those gaps, and those crews are not coming in the numbers that agriculture needs them to be here. So this is a screenshot from a Facebook post early this September. This was an ICE detention that happened here in Corvallis. And the man who was detained and deported was a friend of mine, and he happened to be in the intro photo at the beginning of this presentation. And I just wanted to say, like, as a story for how this impacts our community, his mom is still one of the people responsible for growing the vegetables that you're seeing at the farmer's market. This impacted their family in a really big way. And also, he had a huge role at a local grass seed farm here. And that, again, it feels wrong to even express that, like, the impact on the job site, to lose your lead guy that's really trustworthy and all of that. It's a huge impact to the industry, and again, nothing compared to the impact on families. Yeah, it's hard to know really what to say other than this is really happening in our community. And I don't know quite what to do. I think that kind of building community together is a big part of it. I think I'm still learning. We're all just humans trying to be in community with each other. And, through the pandemic, these are all kind of photos of people that I've worked with over the years. And just the amount of mothering that goes on in the field, I guess I do want to express even before this administration. I don't think we did a good job of taking care of everyone in our food system. And just to say that there's a long way to go. We're in kind of an emergency situation now, but there is a long way to go. And I'm just one person, a part of one project in my community. And this project is called Ejido Oso. It's also known as Oso Honey Farm. Insurance won't cover bees and produce, so we have two different names, logistics. But Ejido Oso is kind of a new community produce farm here in Corvallis. We have a horizontal leadership structure, and we're very much grown out of a result of what is the need of labor in the community in this area. People who have been growing our food for a long time don't have access to the food that reminds them of home. That means something to them. Don't have access. That's what culturally relevant food is. If you can't have access to nutrition, if you can't have access to that. So we provide a space where these crops can be scaled up, which requires some unique infrastructure and decades of breeding to adapt these crops to our climate. And just wanted to show a map of kind of the diaspora communities of one area, Santiago Nuyo in Oaxaca, where a lot of the people that we work with are from. And we kind of have a community space in the back of our property where people take a lot of ownership and have parties, and we do sheep roasts in the back and a lot of kind of joyous moments. This plant on the right is called violeta or alache. It's a mallow plant that you eat for the greens. And this is just an example of some of the crops that we're growing. One of the main ones is this ayote negro. This is a Guatemalan black-fleshed butternut, and this is one of the crops that has taken quite a few years crossing it back with a butternut that yields well in our climate, and reselecting for this color that is what the crop is meant to be. Part of what I love about this new space that we're at is we're just trying something different. We're trying to scale something up. We're also your typical farm stand fare. We grow a lot of strawberries, corn, peaches, tomatoes. We kind of are a third space where a lot of different people feel welcome. And in that is a lot of our Indigenous farm worker community knowing that they can have a safe place to come and get food that that they want, and as well as a place for a lot of our farmers market shoppers to be able to find a spot that isn't on Saturday to shop for their local groceries. And it's also a spot for a lot of our blue collar, more rural, working class communities who are commuting from Junction City and Monroe to stop on their way home from work and get some food for their families, even when they might not typically be the person who goes to the farmer's market and may not share the same politics as I do. And I think it's important to kind of have a space where we get to all see each other's humanity there and see what we can do there. And then this is one of the bigger projects that we've been a part of. This is a Food for Health program. You may have heard of similar programs, a Veggie RX program. But basically, we partnered with the Linn County Health Department. We piloted it in 2024, putting out 50 food boxes a week, and now we're up to 100 this year. And I believe, it's not a super official, but I believe we're approved for a 33% increase for this year, which is great. We're in a third year of the program. But basically, the health department is controlling enrollment. People do not have to income qualify. They don't have to share their information with the government. You don't have to be an OHP member to receive this food. About half of the families who receive this food are Spanish speaking. And we like to say that no matter where you're from, you're going to find familiar items and you're going to find new items in this box of food. We provide a newsletter that goes with these boxes that is in both English and Spanish. And working on this program has been incredible. This is more of what we want to do. All of this food is home delivered to people by volunteers and partnering organizations. And it's really something that we'd like to scale up in Benton County. Yeah. Is that about time?
1 minute.
1 minute? Okay. And as far as what we can do, I would say, again, I am overwhelmed by our moment. I think I hear a lot of people saying that movements are like ecosystems and they need to happen. There needs to be microbes. There needs to be movement at every fractal level. So I think just supporting every small little effort all around us of someone helping in their neighborhood, someone helping in their neighborhood over here, larger organizations that are able to kind of do that very efficiently, and kind of acting at every level from your neighbor to statewide federal policy work is important. I think that's all I got. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Laura. And while our panelists, our speakers are moving up to the front table to form a panel, go ahead. We're going to go over a few simple guidelines for you for our Q&A. And we're going to take both oral and written questions. And okay, thank you. Please ask a question. Don't make a statement. Be brief. If you're asking a question orally and you take more than 30 seconds, I might cut you off. So keep it short. And then ask questions related to the content of the presentations. So not anything peripheral to what we've been talking about tonight. So I see we've already got a few questions here, and I want to go, if I can read these, I want to go alternating between written and oral. So who certifies that SNAP recipients meet the work requirement standard? Who would like to take that one?
So I'm not,
It should be on. Is it working?
it's red and green. Anyway, I'm not an
Here,
expert.
why don't you figure this out
Okay.
and I'll take that.
Okay. I'm certainly not an expert on SNAP, but so the certification process happens by state workers and food stamp workers. that is the cost that I alluded to for the current biennium, 25-27, that $115 million that's out there that needs to be funded. That is the cost that HR 1 is imposing on Oregon to maintain current levels of benefits to the populations. The estimate, again, if Oregon doesn't improve its error rates, and it gets complicated, but the estimate for 27-29, if Oregon doesn't improve, is $450 million just to keep benefit levels where they currently are. So,
Anybody else have anything to add? Okay. All right. Who has a question? Yes, Carla.
This is for Laura. I was curious, who's funding the Food for Health boxes?
Yeah, so the first year, so we're the farmers and the aggregators. The health department runs a lot of that stuff. So my partner over at the health department would know that question a little bit better. But the first year it was like weird funding through the American Heart Association. This last year it was directly funded by IHN CCO, which I am not super familiar with the medical side of things, but I believe there are 3 CCOs in the state who are responsible for distributing Medicaid, and IHN CCO is one of them. Ish?
There's more than that.
Okay. So that's a simplification. So they are one of the organizations. So it is basically directly funded by the hospital system as an extension of the Linn County Health Department.
All right. Thank you. What percentage of farms would you guess rely on local, state, or federal funding? Maybe we'll just speak locally here.
All of them. I think everyone relies on that funding in different forms.
All right.
I'll just add that Linn Benton Food Share has been sure. Linn Benton Food Share has been involved in a program called Intentional Production for the better part of probably 12 years, where we'll contract with local farms to produce for pantries. We partner with Ejido Ono on this, as well as gathering together Pitchfork and Crow, a number of farms, and they've said that it's always been helpful for their bottom line. It also gets fantastic produce to the food pantry system, which oftentimes has to rely on donated sort of marginal crops. So this is increasing the nutritional quality and helping the local farm economy.
Great. Good. Any questions out there? Surely there are. Yes, Corinne.
Where does the largest quantity of your food for the food share come from?
Can you repeat the question?
Go ahead.
Okay. Largest percentage of where our food is sourced from. Lately, it's local production. So we have a couple major donors. Stallbush Island Farms happens to be one of those, and ironically, we have a Target distribution center just down the road from our warehouse in Tangent, and so between those two, that's 200,000+ pounds per month. Another significant source is just local grocery store food recovery. As I said, it can be between 100 and 150,000 pounds of food recovered that way. And then the third one is purchased. We purchase much more food than we ever have in the past.
So how does the Oregon Food Bank deal with you? Or how much do you get from them?
Yeah, OFB administers the USDA commodity. So basically, product comes from USDA to Oregon Food Bank and ships it down to us. And then we also do get some statewide donations through Oregon Food Bank. That has been a shrinking amount of our total just because of the logistics or the reality of donations are down from corporate donors and USDA commodities are flat. One thing I didn't mention during the presentation is in early April this year, funding for a number of USDA foods was cut. That amounted to about 80,000 pounds of food just for Linn Benton Food Share from April to June of this year. And that funding was never restored. We don't expect it to be. We'll see. Honestly, we don't know what 26 is going to bring as far as the USDA commodities to us.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a question for Mika. I was trying to write down quickly the bills that you mentioned that are coming before our state legislature. Couldn't write fast enough. Do you have that kind of information on your website if people want to write to their legislators to support certain bills? I mean, where will we find that information?
You can join our newsletter if you're interested in getting updates. Normally we do an advocacy day every year, but there's just too many intersecting dangers right now for bringing a group of folks to the Capitol, so we've chosen not to do that. And we also do advocacy trainings and civic engagement trainings regularly, so if you get on our newsletter, you will get updates about that. And I can also speak to anyone individually about the things, but we will have a list of things we've endorsed coming out soon. Some of these are budget requests and some of them will be bills, so it's a little bit tricky right now, and the bills haven't dropped yet, so we're waiting.
All right, thank you. So another written question, and this says, question to all panelists. I have a feeling I have a feeling I know where this question started. What is the emerging data or thoughts about local government opening city-run or nonprofit grocery stores as a strategy to address food security? I think this is something that new Mayor Mamdani has talked about, correct? About opening city-run stores, but I don't know if you all have any information or thoughts about that.
I don't. I feel like Ryan, maybe, I don't know, Linn Benton Food Share is probably closest thing to it. Sharon?
Now, here, Sharon, do you want the microphone? And you should introduce yourself.
I'm Sharon Thornberry. I worked for Linn Benton Food Share a long time ago and then spent 25 years at Oregon Food Bank. I'm the executive director at Philomath Community Services now. So there's a movement. Kansas State University has a rural grocery initiative, which has started grocery stores across the country. Some of them were cooperatives that were supported by local municipalities and so on. There is a movement about local grocery stores. Philomath is one of those places that is literally a food desert because we have no grocery store, and it's been a big topic of conversation. Moving into, we're starting something called a 2050 initiative, and that's a big piece of that discussion is where we get them. It's complicated. A lot of the co-ops that were started through the Rural Grocery Initiative out of Kansas City and out of Kansas State were actually sold. They started as cooperatives, got their start, proved that they could be profitable, and then they were bought by either a consortium of people or by a chain who said, oh, we can run a grocery store there, people will buy. So grocery store industries, and it's an ever-changing thing. I started my career in the grocery industry, and it's ever-changing. As much as food banking has changed over the decades that I've been involved, the grocery industry and the food industry in general is constantly changing.
And I was just going to add to that I know a lot of our producers in this area, a bulk of them take their produce out of our area to go fetch the highest price in a different city. And we would love that. We would love to grow food for a project like that.
I'll just add, this is kind of relevant, is the reason why the food banking system is so effective is because of the free labor that volunteers bring to the system. It's the only reason why it continues to exist. Volunteerism is a significant concern for this system to continue. I can't imagine if we ran a similar system where you had to pay people to run that secondary system, it would not be financially feasible to run a program like ours with paid employees throughout all the pantries that we serve. So somewhat related.
Sort of a related question. Have you seen any increases in donations? I mean, I know end of year fundraising drives and so on. Has that been something that has worked for you? Or I'm sure it could always be more than it is, but.
So the end of October into November, because there was so much media around the food stamp issue, and immediately people looked to the food banks for the immediate solution. The state government put money into supporting the food bank network as well, but the local reaction was tremendous during that period, just overwhelming. So it does show that people really do care about one another. That was the takeaway from my experience, and that people want to do something. And in this case, supporting the local pantries and food bank was the most immediate, direct thing that you could do to overcome the sort of frustration of that period. So yeah, it was tremendous response during that period.
Hopefully will continue. Yeah. Questions from the audience, please. We've got these great resources up here. What are your questions? Anybody? Don't be shy. I won't cut you off if you want to ask a long question. How about that? Okay.
What's something Benton County residents can do to make sure that if there's a local food security program, project, initiative, that it stays local? That those involved, those who it seeks, the funding that it creates and within the community all stays kind of like the food and veggie. How do we make sure, what steps can we do to keep it local and community based?
Are you speaking to programs that started really local and then ended up moving?
Yeah, how do we keep encouraging when things start here to stay here?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm a part of a lot of programs here. Just our farm is local here to stay. Linn Benton Food Share. I don't know. I think there's a lot of organizations in town that are kind of very hyper local to this space, but there are definitely ones that grow and kind of maybe lose that heart.
So can I respond to that? So I volunteer at the South Corvallis Food Bank, and we have grown exponentially this last 5 years because of everything that's going on. And because we've gotten so many good donations monetarily, and this year the fruit crop was great. They got a lot of stuff from people's gardens, sage gardens too, and we got a lot of volunteers besides the monetary donations. I think that encourages our staff and our volunteers to stick with it, to see so many people wanting to be involved with it. So we're staying and we're helping out with things, and I don't see it moving out. We get lots of produce from Oso and other farms gathering together.
Right. Yeah.
I think to answer the question more generally, I think what's important for us as individuals and organizations is to really lean back on our values. And so to have those clear values elucidated in the beginning of whatever project it is can really help set the tone for it. And it can also help when there's, say, if someone does leave and there's a replacement of, someone else comes into that position. But I think really that is extremely important for us to be grounded in the values and to think of that even before the project starts, right? Just start with that. So
not exactly related to your question, but kind of, was so since Linn Benton Food Share serves 2 counties, we see sort of the issues that are in the Corvallis area, but we also see issues that are related to service delivery in, say, Sweet Home or Alsea. So I would encourage folks, if you were interested in volunteering or getting involved, to not just think about your local, like in your neighborhood area, but also maybe a more rural way. Volunteering at a food pantry or a meal site is a great way to meet new people, and it's welcoming, and you'll feel like you're connected to that community. Our regional or our rural areas really do struggle with getting enough volunteers to run those systems. So, and you know, the resources are abundant in Corvallis, but out in Alsea or Blodgett, they struggle.
So as a follow-up, I think you said 68 was the number of food sites that Linn Benton Food Share serves. Where would people be able to find a list of all of those different sites?
At our website.
Okay.
Yeah, the best way, if you want to have sort of a comprehensive conversation about how to volunteer, get involved, you can contact our office, and we can run through the list. So there's 68 agencies that we provide food or services to. In addition, we have a senior box program called the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, where we pack boxes once a month and deliver those out to seniors. For that program, we are delivering 448 boxes per month. So it's a pretty extensive program, and that's throughout the 2 counties as well.
Wow, okay. Yes. Actually, I'm going to take the person in front of you, Sharon, because I don't think she's had an opportunity yet. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what can our community do for farm workers, and are there things that farms can do to help with ICE and the fear and everything that you all have been speaking to already? I'm just wondering, like, as a citizen here, is there something we could do besides like protest? I know that there's not. Maybe there's, yeah, I'm just curious if we could talk more about that and how we can support those communities.
I can start. So
Online, for the recording, can you repeat the question so people can hear?
Sure. The question is about what can the community do around ICE enforcement and farm workers in general besides protesting? And so, you know, first, like I said, I think everyone here should take a know your rights and know their rights training so that you know what the rights are supposedly. I mean, right now it's a great question because we are seeing immigration officials blatantly disregarding what our rights are, right? So it's an extremely important question, and it's a prescient question, and it's not something I'm going to have all the answers for. But I think that is where we start. We start by figuring out what our rights are, how we can step in, and what your capacity is, right? So what your safety level is, what your status is, how can you intervene? If you feel safe enough to do rapid response, if you feel safe enough to record, whatever it is, because there's enforcement happening all over, even if it's not publicized, right, in our area. So that's one place to start. Next, I think that we need to all really get much more involved with our legislative process, right? Because there are things coming down the pike in short session, which is going to be super brief because it's only from beginning of February to the first week of March, and everything's really going to be happening in the first 2 weeks of session, right? So that now that's the time where people need to reach out to the legislators, people that are not supportive of these things, right? And make it clear that we are not going to stand by idly while rights are being completely ignored. We are not going to allow that, and we support the packages that are coming down the line, including, you know, making sure that folks, all law enforcement can't be masked, right? Because I just have to add a little bit more to the context because I was really constrained in my talk. I'm like 10 minutes. Oh no, I can talk for much longer. So I do have to add more to that because it's not just the ICE officials, right? It's not just immigration that's causing havoc. There are people that are impersonating ICE officials. People are feeling emboldened to do all sorts of things. So it goes far beyond that. So yes, we need to start with ourselves and then look and see how we can support the advocacy and the legislation that's coming out around that, and especially around our schools, right? And Sarah Finger McDonald has a bill coming out specifically about schools. I know that there's things coming down around courthouses and hospitals because, again, we don't want ICE officials, which they have done, going into hospitals and then, it's making people not go to healthcare appointments. It's making people scared to get food. It's changing the whole fabric of our society. And I'm not going to stand for it. So everybody has to look and see what they can do. Look where you have a sphere of influence and power and use it. If it's your voice, use your voice. If it's your funds, use your funds. But that's where I would start, and I will pass it to whoever wants to go next.
Can I just ask a real quick follow-up? Where do you get the trainings that, the Know Your Rights, Know Their Rights trainings? Where are those available locally or online or whatever?
There's a variety of organizations doing it. You can look for to PERC, and you can also look, a good resource hub would be Oregon for All. And I don't have the website right now, but I will send you some information and you can.
Law firm is doing them once a month. So
That is true.
law firm.
That's true. Reynolds Law Firm. Thank you. Locally, Reynolds Law Firm.
And PERC, that's PIRC, really, really good resource, yeah. It's such a big question. I can say that a lot of farms do provide and have provided ICE trainings. What happens? What happens if ICE comes onto the farm? The OSU Extension has put out resources to farm administrators and HR professionals to know how to safely maintain employees' records, to know how to keep I-9 separate from other employees' personal information so that you know the difference between an ICE raid and an ICE audit, and what type of information you are required to give at those two different types of visits. That is, again, supposedly as if they follow the rules, when we know that they don't. Just from my experience in September with, I referred to it as a detention. We reported it as a kidnapping because that's what it was. And when we went and talked to the local police department about it, they said, well, because Oregon is a sanctuary state, that means that ICE does not share any information with Oregon State Police. So when someone is taken, it's really hard to figure out what's happening. So I agree with what Mika says, know your rights trainings. And I think also just trying to figure out, where are the churches, where are the mutual aid groups in our community who are serving people through home delivery or other alternative routes that are safe, and how to give in the way that you know how to give to those places.
All right, thank you. Good question. Sharon, did you have your hand up earlier?
Yeah. Linn and Benton County Health Departments have convened a community food systems network. It met during the pandemic and then died away, and then I came to town and started nagging them. So we convened last month. We had 60 people in the room talking about community food systems, and that was one of them. I don't know who else here may have been there. And we continue to meet monthly, and we're going to have quarterly meetings of everybody together. So we've got working groups. If you're interested, that's a good place to get involved, is in that network. And you'll be hearing more as we build out what's going to happen from that. And it includes food pantries and producers and farmers and health department folks, and the hospital is funding this, and IHN is funding it. So, there's a lot of support for it. So I encourage people, you can get in touch with me at Philomath Community Services, or Matt Gillespie at the Benton County Health Department, or Diego, I'm not going to remember his last name.
Nieto.
At the Linn County Health Department.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm on that list, so if anybody, who I know wants to be added, I know folks are welcome.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes, please do. Yes.
So, I think another thing in response to your question that's super important is for us to look at our daily lives and how we might be complicit with illegal, the illegal searches and immigration enforcement. And so what I mean by that is, do you have a Ring camera? Like, are you using forms of surveillance that are being tapped into by DHS that are being used for immigration enforcement? And if you are, turn them off, get rid of them. That is fairly new information that, the Ring cameras are being used by immigration enforcement. So there's just so many layers to this, and every one of us can do something. And I would just encourage us all to think in that mindset.
Thank you. So we wanted to make sure we had time to extend this conversation about what can we do. And so as we've been hearing all night, there are actions we can take to address threats to our democracy. And at this time, I'm going to ask Elizabeth and Autumn to distribute a handout that we had put together. And I think there are a few things on here that were not covered this evening. But a lot of it is duplicative. But I think what's useful on this handout, what we've done is divided it into two overarching actions. The first is to participate in the democratic process, such as voting, staying informed, reaching out to elected officials. I know Mika has mentioned several times how important it is for us to support certain bills that are going to be in the short legislative session. Attending town halls and government meetings, serving on boards and commissions. So I would just say that in order to protect our democracy, we need to participate in our democracy, in the process that still exists. And then secondarily, on this little handout, specific to tonight's topic, we encourage you to get connected with various food-related organizations, to advocate, and where you can, to donate or volunteer. We've listed 5 different ones on here with their website addresses: Linn Benton Food Share, Philomath's Food Bank, South Corvallis Food Bank, and then I know Laura has mentioned a couple times the farmers markets. There's the Corvallis Albany Farmers Market, and then right now the Corvallis Winter Market, which happens on Saturdays between 9 and 1 at the fairgrounds. And if you're not used to going to the farmers market, you may not be aware there is so much food there during the winter. It's wonderful. And this is just a great way for us to support our local farms and local farmers. So in just a few minutes, we're going to invite you to talk with others as part of a small group, and we have a few questions to get you started. What stood out from what you've heard tonight? Were there any particular ideas or pieces of information? What concerned you most about federal policies and decisions related to food and agriculture? And again, what can individuals do and what can we do together? So this is going to be just a very short time for people to share their thoughts with each other and to support each other. So we don't expect you to cover all of these questions. It's just an opportunity to get together for a few minutes. So discussion guidelines: listen to understand, show respect by suspending judgment. You know, we're not talking to each other to try to convince people of our point of view or anything like that, just to listen to each other. And then focus the conversation on these issues and not on particular personalities. So right now, we're going to ask you to turn to the people around you and create a group of about 4 to 5 people. So we're going to be shuffling chairs around. We're going to ask you to do that. Please stay, because we have some important announcements at the end of the program. We're only going to take about 10 minutes for you to talk with each other, and just a group of 4 to 5 people. And go ahead and rearrange your chairs however you need to. So let's come back together as a group. And I was wondering, is there anyone who would like to briefly share something that stood out for you from your group's discussion. Was there any comment that anybody made that kind of stuck with you, or was there a general theme that your group was speaking to? Anybody want to share? This is a shy group. Nobody heard anything that they want to. Oh, yes, thank you.
So one thing that came up is just supporting folks who don't feel safe and feel isolated right now. And it seems like we all really want to be able to figure out the ways we can do that.
Right, supporting folks who are feeling isolated. Yeah.
Not from here, who are at higher risk for ICE detention and stuff like that. So.
Thank you. Yeah. So anybody else? Or were there any groups that talk about the need to help those who are feeling isolated, and where would you go to, connect with folks who are being isolated or feeling that way? Any thoughts? All right. Peter, yeah?
Let's see. I've worked with the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Corvallis, and we will be initiating the distribution of probably anywhere from 15 to 40 boxes it's partly through Unity Shelter. There's a big program to get homeless people into housing, and they need food. Some of them don't have access to transportation. So you can contact me or the UU Secure Food and Housing Task Force and help distribute this. It's a way to personally meet people who are transitioning from homelessness to a home, and just by getting the box to them and saying hello and maybe having a little conversation with them. So
thank you. Okay, thanks. Anybody else? All right. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention Food Advocacy Day. Nobody mentioned that. The Oregon Food Bank is sponsoring Food Advocacy Day, and it's really well organized, so you can join, and they provide transportation and a whole day where you'll get to meet people and go to Corvallis, and when you register, they will automatically figure out who your representative is. So when you arrive in Salem, there'll be a big room, and you'll go to a table that has already been, you'll meet people who are going to go see your representative, and they provide all the materials, the talking points about food, and access for all Oregonians to food, and the legislature. So you get to go with your group, to meet your representatives. There's a big lunch provided. It's super well organized.
So Peter, we'd go to the Oregon Food Bank website to find out more, probably.
Yeah.
If they're the ones.
It's Food for All Oregonians website, and I'm almost certain that registration period has closed, but it's a good place to check either way.
Okay.
They do have an advocacy day. It's coming up at the first week of February.
Great, thank you. All right. So
there still might be some openings in the car going to from Corvallis.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Peter. So if you'd like to continue the discussion that we launched this evening, we invite you to attend our next league discussion group, which will be on Wednesday, February 11th from 5 to 7 at Bodie on First. And it's open to everyone. You don't have to be a league member to participate in that discussion group. And also, we will be sponsoring 2 legislative updates during this year's short session of the Oregon Legislature. And the first one is going to be 2 days from now. On Saturday, January 24th, it's going to be It's co-sponsored by Benton County, so it's going to be at the county's Calapooya building over on Research Way. And this is a great opportunity to hear from our elected officials who represent us in Salem, and for us to be able to talk to them. And we encourage you to attend. I'm sure Senator Gelser is going to be there. Do you know? And Representative Finger McDonald as well. During the past 5 months, our league has sponsored a series of programs under the theme Restoring Democracy, as I mentioned earlier. And tonight's program is being recorded, and it's going to be posted on the league's YouTube channel, hopefully by next week. If you know of folks who wanted to come tonight but couldn't make it, we encourage you to send them to the league's YouTube channel. And then I know that our first couple programs were on there. I'm not sure if all of them made it onto the site, but anyway, it's a good place to check it out if you missed any of these. So in closing, first of all, we want to thank all of our speakers so much for sharing your evening with us. Really appreciate it. If there was ever a time for us to get involved and to and make use of the democratic processes that exist for us, now is the time. And then I wanted to end on a personal note. I would like to recommend a book I've been reading called Giving Up is Unforgivable, a manual for keeping a democracy. And the author is Joyce Vance, who for 25 years was a career federal prosecutor, and she's now a distinguished professor of law, University of Alabama Law School, and a legal analyst on MS Now, you know, what used to be MSNBC. And I have just found this book to be incredibly informative, encouraging, and an important call to action. And in her closing, I just wanted to read you a few statements. She says, "This moment challenges us to understand how our system of government works, what rights it gives us, and how we can use our power to ensure that tyranny cannot take permanent hold in this country. At the end of the day, it takes more than people in powerful positions to hold in check a president who wants to be a strong man. It will take all of us. It will be the small acts of protest, of resistance, of education, and of love for country that will keep a would-be dictator from seizing control." And I just want to thank you all for being part of this process and for making time to be here tonight to be part of this program. I hope you have a great rest of your evening. Thanks.